Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Step Up to the Mic. I am here with Ivan from the Public Speaking Lab. According to Ivan, bios are boring. So here, here are a few interesting tidbits instead. Ivan is a top-rated instructor on Coursera with over 200,000 global students. He was the official host for the FIFAWorld Cup, Olympics, Invictus Games, and PanAm Games. So he's done quite a bit there. And he is the author of the Amazon bestseller End Boring: A Tactical Approach to Communication. On top of all that, when he's not teaching, he is a professional salsa dancer. Folks, I can't wait to hear what he has to say. Please welcome Ivan Wanis Ruiz.
Thank you very much, Rory. Thank you very much. You know, when I was a little kid, I had this crazy irrational fear of sharks in swimming pools. Rory, what was your irrational fear? Do you have any crazy irrational fears?
Spiders, horribly, brother. Spiders, absolutely.
They're scared of us. Yet we have these irrational fears. But today, I want to talk about a fear that is very real, and not enough of people are afraid. Listen, in my life, the odds of me jumping into a swimming pool with a shark in it are close to zero. In my life, the odds of what I'm about to talk about today are 99.99%. So, what is this fear? Before I answer that question, let me ask all of you, the millions listening around the world, a question, okay? What information do you have in your head that I can't find out for myself in 30 seconds? Quick search. Also, what technical expertise do you have that an AI hasn't already replaced or probably will replace in the next few years? So, if the information that someone brings has no value, if their technical expertise has decreasing value, why you? What is the value, the competitive advantage of the future that individuals can bring if it's not our knowledge or expertise? Well, I think it's communication. It's going to be our ability to inspire, convince, and persuade. It's going to be how we use information. The richest people in the world are never the ones who create the technology. They're the ones who use it the best. I mean, if you ask most people, hey, who created the internet? People are like, I don't know. Ask people, what's Google? Everybody knows. So today, I want to try and give you not ideas, because we have enough ideas. Everybody's got an idea. Everybody on LinkedIn without a job telling you they're a coach has an idea. I don't want to talk about ideas. I want to talk about tactics, things that by the end of this podcast, you will be able to do to make yourself a more engaging person and speaker. Because that is something that AI can't take away from us. So, how? What do we do? Well, first, a moment of realization. Everyone listening right now, Rory, I'm going to ask you a question. Everyone listening right now, I can almost guarantee is doing something else. There's not a person quietly sitting in a chair staring at a wall being like, let me absorb this information. No, all of you are doing dishes, watching TV, you're on your phone. Rory, I'm going to ask you, I mean, how many screens do you have in front of you right now? How many tabs do you have open on your computer? Where is your phone? Answer, go ahead.
I have one open just for you, brother, but I do have my phone next to me in case I need it, and I am drinking coffee and taking notes.
And if I ask any person in this room, anyone listening right now, take your phone out, okay? Unlock it, but don't open it, don't look at your email. That would be virtually impossible. Like even me saying it right now, everyone listening is going, oh, I wonder if I got any emails. So understanding that there is nothing you can do about distraction. is the first realization we need to have. Understanding that no matter what you do, your audience will be distracted at some point. Now, here's where I can give you some hope. Most people make it an easy loss. You know what? I'm just going to get through this. If they have questions, they can ask me at the end. I want to show you how to make it a hard loss. I want to show you how to make it hard for people to look at the other screen, to keep checking their phones. Because the reality is this, most of us come in, and whether it's in person or it's over Zoom or it's over Teams, we'll come in and instantly do something to disengage. You'll walk into a conference, you'll sit down and start looking at your phone until it's like rude to keep looking at it. You'll come into a Zoom meeting, and what you'll do? Hi, everybody. Hey, what's up? And right away, go to work. Start checking your email, working on other things. And then if you think about it, how much of a tragedy is it when you work so hard to do a presentation, you stress out about it? Most people get so freaked out about their presentations. You stress. You don't sleep the night before just to have nobody listen and to have no one care. Isn't that a tragedy? How tragic is it that you're a postdoc student who has dedicated 10 years of your life to your research only to have nobody care? How tragic is it that the person who dedicates their life to a field of study is overruled by some dude in his car that watched a YouTube video? Think about it. There is no climate debate. There is 99.9% of all educated people who research the field agreeing. And then some dude going, actually, yet they have equal voices. Why? This realization leads me to the first tactic. This is why. And this is one of the truest things you will ever hear. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying it's how our brains work. An anecdote is not evidence, but it is more convincing than evidence. An anecdote, a personal experience, is not evidence, but it is more convincing than evidence. Let me prove it to you. For all the older people, if you're in your 40s right now or older, you might remember P90X. P90X was like a fitness phenomenon. For everybody younger, CrossFit, High Rocks, Pilates. Now, here's the thing. The reason those things became so popular, Bikram yoga, the reason they became so popular is because they relied on anecdotal evidence. Any infomercial that you've ever seen, and P90X is one of the best examples. They use it masterfully, okay? They say, hey, look at me. I used to be all bleh. Now I got a six-pack and I'm just jacked all the time. And you're like, you know that's not true. They have a little thing that says, the little tiny writing. You don't even need to read the writing. Like, this is not typical results. You know that. You know that when you have like whatever magical fruit or new miracle drug or new miracle food, you know deep down inside. But one person going like, I've been drinking coconut water and now look at me, I'm 10 years younger. There's always a party that's like, I know it's BS, but maybe. Why? Because we use the anecdote. And in my research, what I've been looking at, real communication. You know who uses this very well? Con men, cult leaders. Forget like your keynote speaker. Forget like, a CEO doing a presentation. Forget a politician. No one listens to them. No one listening has ever actually heard an Obama speech or a Steve Jobs keynote. You've never heard it. You've heard excerpts of it, but you've never been like, yo, you all want to come over on Friday night, get some pizza and beers and watch Steve Jobs? No. Yet, think about real persuasion. Cult leaders convince thousands to give them everything they own. Anecdotal evidence, anecdotes, experiences are not evidence, but they are more convincing than evidence. Anyone listening, you've probably eaten a food, you had no idea why it was good for you. You ate it anyway because someone said so. People invest in things all the time. They have no idea what they're investing, but someone said, "Oh, you better do it quick because I'm rich already." But now you can do it. You should do it before it's too late. Done. So our first rule is, if you really want to be a more impactful, persuasive person, it doesn't matter how much evidence, facts, figures, information you have. It has no value. You need to intersperse, for right or wrong, anecdotal experiences if you really want to convince people. No one does it. No educated person does it. Highly influential people do it, and they're rarely the most educated in the field. So take that idea and fold it up and put it in your pocket. Now, to my listening audience, Rory, are you much of a fan of cocaine?
Not much, no.
Not much of a fan of cocaine? Nothing? None.
No.
Okay. Well, let me ask you another question. What does dopamine do?
It makes you happy.
Makes you feel good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cocaine essentially pretends to be dopamine in your brain. It essentially overloads the neurotransmitter sites for dopamine, which is why I have heard it makes you feel good. What does this have to do with presenting? What does this have to do with communication? What does this have to do with beating AI? Well, there's a fantastic book that is called The Organized Mind. It was written by a gentleman named John Levitin. He's a professor at McGill University in Montreal. And he talked about this part of the brain called Area 47. And Area 47 essentially does two things. If you look at the research, it is partially responsible for dopamine release, regulating how much dopamine is released into your brain. And secondly, it seems to be related to our ability to predict. And here's what the evidence shows. When there is nothing to predict, dopamine release is reduced. However, when you're not sure what is going to happen next, dopamine is being pumped into your brain because prediction is a survival mechanism. Our ability to know what's coming next is essential for our survival. How does this relate to communication? Well, very simply put, if I know exactly what's coming next, I'm not going to listen. If all the information is on your slide, I'll just say, can I get the slide deck later? And everyone listening has said this to themselves. Oh, I'll just get it later and I'll read it when I have some time. Because you know exactly what is going to happen next. It's another reason why bios are so boring, why no one listens to bios. It's in the website. It's on the thing. You're like, oh, they're just going to tell me why they're so. You know exactly what's going to happen next, which is why so many of us tune out. We tune out to the introduction. We turn out to the agenda because we know exactly what's happening. So knowing this, how do we use that information to our advantage? The strategy is very simple, and I've done it several times today. This is also what great books do and great movies do. They start off with something that seems unrelated or disconnected, and then they make the relationship. In a book, in a movie, it's the preface, the little opening sequence. And then it cuts to something totally unrelated. And you're like, ooh, how are these two connected? In a presentation, for example, the one I'm doing for you right now, how many times have I brought up something that you're like, what? What does this have to do with anything? And then I relate it to my topic. When I started off about irrational fears, when I talked about cocaine are just two examples, but I did several more. And I invite, if you're listening, go back and see how often I use this. Why? In a world where my phone is right beside me, where distraction is everywhere, in a world where information has almost no value, my ability to keep you interested is a competitive advantage. My ability to be like, ooh, how is this? Wait a minute. How is this connected to this? Oh, where are you going with this? Is how I how I keep you engaged. Because if you don't know what is going to happen next, You have to listen. If you look at a slide and you have no idea what it means, well, then you have to listen to me to give that slide meaning. So the second tip is uncertainty equals interest. Uncertainty equals interest. And that's the third strategy I'm going to give you. If you want to be dramatic, irrespective of personality, you could be a soft-spoken person or a loudspeaker. It doesn't matter. You got to use the little strategy that I've done several times today. I've done it several times. And I just did it again. Did you notice it? I say something, I pause, and then I say it again. And it makes it sound so important, doesn't it? In fact, I've done it throughout the presentation. Uncertainty equals interest. An anecdote is not evidence. I use that strategy for each one of the things that I really want to make sound important. I say it, I count to one or two in my head, and then I just say it again. Every time you do it, it makes whatever you're saying sound so profound. Say it, pause, say it again. SP squared. That's what I call it. SP squared. And before I'm done, I want to leave you with a sort of inspirational quote. Because the truth is this, most of you may agree with what I'm saying. Be like, ooh, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. And most of you won't do it. Most of you will take that idea and just go back to what you always do. So for the one or two of you that are listening that actually do it, is that not the definition of market opportunity? And here's the quote. 99% of people are afraid of speaking. Of the 1% that isn't, 99% of them have nothing interesting to say. Quite literally, the strategies I am giving you is to make you the 1% of the 1%. And in a world where AI is taking away our expertise, where knowledge has no value because I can just find it for myself, your ability to be that 1% is going to be your ability to succeed. And that is the competitive advantage of the future. So with that, thank you very much. And Rory, I pass it back over to you.
Thank you, brother. That was absolutely wonderful. I
Thank
loved
you
every
for
minute of
having me, my friend.
it. Loved every minute of it. That was great. And those were such actionable points that you put out just now. I teach a lot of stuff in podcasting, and I think a lot of people forget those things in podcasting as well, especially the part about take a pause, say it a second time, that sort of thing, because we are so interested in getting to the next question, and that we kind of forget to listen. Where did you learn these things from?
It's very interesting because one of the reasons I got into this field to begin with, my origin story a little bit, was born out of frustration with the fact that so many of the things that people taught of as good communication didn't seem to apply in the real world.
Hmm.
I'm what's called a distinguished Toastmaster, which is like the highest level of Toastmaster for public speaking.
Right.
I was a certified Dale Carnegie trainer in high impact presentations, and both of their approaches were very dogmatic. And the people who were speaking were good, but you couldn't give them a mic and say, hey, kill 10 minutes before a concert. You couldn't give them a mic and say, hey, listen, can you talk to these engineers about simplifying, wind flows on concrete? They'd be a fish out of water. They were only good in their own little fields. And then I did some research and I looked into who are really persuasive people. And I talked to the police, for example, like interview experts. How do you know when someone's lying, when they're nervous? I talked to buskers, like street performers. How do you get someone to take their earbuds out and watch you? I talked to professional poker players. What are you looking for when you're looking if people are bluffing or not? And there seem to be these overlaps. I talked to professional wrestlers. Taught me one of the best strategies for persuasion. And everyone really persuasive people do it. And it's so transparent, you don't even notice it when it happens. Like the strategies I did in my talk, You didn't notice them until after I told you what I was doing. And they're like, oh, you diabolical fiend. And so a lot of these strategies came from like looking at people forget people who teach communication, people who do communication. And I tried to take out what they were doing and see if I could actually physicalize them into tactics. So the silence, pause, silence is something that I got from a couple of different people. And one of them, he's just the most powerful. He was a human rights activist in the 70s, and I forgot his name, and I'm gonna be so embarrassed that I forgot his name. But he did it, and he was so powerful when he spoke, and he would say something, and he would just look at you, and he'd say it again, and you'd be like, yeah, like yeah, I'm like, I'm gonna cry, and I don't know why, you know. But then I realized that many cult leaders did the same thing.
Hmm.
They would say something and look at you, and then they would say it again, and you'd be like the people. Gosh, I'm forgetting all the names now off the top of my head. But there was a documentary on Netflix about the this. They took over a small town somewhere in like Nebraska, and their main guru used to do these kind of things. So I started noticing these kind of like they were used for like for lack of a better term for the light and the dark side of the force. And if they work for both sides, that means they work. So that's where I got SP squared from
I
in a
like it.
long-winded way.
I like it. I like it. Now, the public speaker lab. This is your
Yeah.
organization.
Yes.
Okay. Tell
Public
everybody about
speaking
that. Yeah.
lab. Yeah. The reason it's called the lab, by the way, is because, as I mentioned previously, there's enough ideas in the world. We don't need more ideas. You go to YouTube, get any idea you want. I think I'm unique because I teach public speaking skills. I mean, I am. But you could go on YouTube and find 1,000 public speaking coaches. So ideas don't matter. Ideas are everywhere. Really, what we need is experimentation and physical tactics. Let me give you an example. People say silence is important. You should use silence in your presentation. And if you're like me, you're like, yeah, I know, but that's the conversation is ended. Most public speaking, it's important to use silence. Where? Well, when you say something's important, you're like, where, dude? Like, tell me how to do it.
Right.
And no one does. I mean, everyone listening right now, you've all probably, if you've ever taken a course on public speaking, the person teaching public speaking was not doing any of the things they told you to do.
That's probably very true.
Uh, yeah. And so the idea that one of my competitive advantages, my niches, is a high level of interaction. In the room, when I'm doing a workshop, I speak less than half the time. And people are experimenting more than half the time in partner work, in group work, in discussion, in demonstration. So that's why it's called the lab, because every workshop is an experiment to discover the next big thing in communication.
Interesting. I love that. How long have you been speaking?
Well, I'll give you the Coles notes. Formally, as a business, probably about 12 years, 13 years. But I was very lucky in that when I graduated high school, I didn't really go to university for a couple of years. And I managed to get this very cool job teaching, running interactive youth facilitation sessions. And so for 2 years, I would go to elementary schools, high schools, youth detention centers, community groups, and we'd run these like 1 hour long facilitation sessions on racism and violence. So by the time I went to university, I had just had more time to develop my communication because for years I'd get up in front of groups. I was fearless in front of groups because not because I wasn't nervous. I just had so much experience in it. That became a trend in every job I burnt out of. I burnt out of sales. I burnt out of finance. I was a personal assistant. I worked for a non-for-profit. I was a bookkeeper. I burnt out of every single job. And the only thing that seemed to be the common underlying factor was I seemed to be the guy that was always good at speaking.
Interesting.
And
All right.
after a few years of struggling and kind of having my late 20s crisis where I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm almost 30 and I have nothing going on in my life. I thought, well, this seemed to be the theme. And so I thought maybe make a business out of it.
Nice. And
Yeah.
somewhere along the line, you wrote the book, End Boring, A
Yeah.
Technical Approach to Communication. So tell us about that, brother, in case somebody wants to look that up.
Yeah. You can just find it on Amazon if you'd like, or actually everywhere, Barnes and Nobles, wherever fine books are sold,
Of course.
of course. So the idea behind the book was both from a practical, but also from a business development perspective. When I was starting out my business and I was developing my ideas, I realized that it's a very saturated market. The speaker, the trainer, it's a very saturated market.
Right.
And I thought, okay, well, I need to somehow get some sort of social proof. Hence why I became a distinguished Toastmaster. I became a certified Dale Carnegie trainer because I wanted to get some sort of like credentials behind me. And then I thought, you know, one of the other ways I could do it, and it could lead to a partial revenue source, was to write a book, because then I can say I'm an author, you know what I mean? And it added another level of, I guess, legitimacy to what I'm doing.
Yep. Right.
And so that was kind of the impetus for the book, was as a way to like give myself a little bit more credibility, but also as a long-term passive income stream.
Excellent.
And I read it, by the way. The audiobook version is me. And
Oh,
there's a bunch of
nice.
times where I get, yeah. And so if you enjoyed me getting really worked up for no reason about things I'm talking about, that's in the book.
Love it. When you were doing your talk a little earlier, I did really appreciate your body language and the way
Oh,
that you were
thank you.
using your body to also tell your
Mm,
story. So, I mean, that's a big part of speaking, for folks
yes.
that people completely forget. And, there's
Yeah.
folks who are like, I just need to put my hands in my pockets. So I stop talking with them. And I'm like, no, use them if that, I'm right here doing this,
You
talking,
got to use
right?
them. You got to use them. Yeah.
So
And
where'd you learn that? And what can you say about that to folks who are having issues with that kind of thing?
first of all, Rory, thank you, by the way. And I want to thank you for giving me a platform, for some random lunatic from Toronto to just like scream into a microphone. There was a couple. This is another one of those examples of why I did. I say sometimes, it's not that I wanted to. I had to do this because I get so frustrated. And this was the disconnect. In doing all my training and looking at public speaking experts, and a lot of them aren't. They just do a keynote about their research, but none of them can really like work a crowd or anything like that, or can talk about outside of their expertise. I can talk in any realm, from engineering to science to biodiversity to rainforest salvage. I talk about everything, and my tactics apply to those. Anyway, total side project there. When I was doing training and trying to develop myself as a speaker, the big question is, oh, what should I do with my hands? What should I do with my body language? And all of the advice seemed to be very just like ad hoc or anecdotal. I was like, well, just try and be natural. And you're like, yeah, dude, how? So what I did is I started looking, and that's where when I was talking to the police, and when I was talking to poker players, they talked about hands and arms and fingers. But then I went kind of next level with it, and I thought about who's really good at talking about nothing, but you in their bedroom by themselves talking to a screen. Well, influencers, YouTube celebrities. So I started looking at what they did.
Hmm.
And they basically, I can formalize it into two main tactics. And if you want, I can tell it to the audience and tell it to you. And I'll
Sure.
show you at the same time. So if
Absolutely.
you are only listening to this, find Rory right now go to Rory's YouTube channel so you can see this. Go and follow him. Give him a like, man. Giving you value. So here's the first thing. When you watch anyone on Twitch, YouTube, influencers, and they're just speaking, typically they have the following frame. They have a frame where you can see their hands moving at a normal level. So if your hands are by your face, you're too close. And two, you will see, and this is what I tell people all the time, is you put your thumb on the top of your head so that you're kind of like in a stop, and your hand should be cut off. So from your belly button up, and your hand should be cut off. If you have that, then you have the perfect frame. Then what do you do with your hands? And the truth is this. You've heard, Rory, people are like, oh, sometimes I use my hands too much and it's distracting. Sort of correct, sort of incorrect. Here's what I mean. If you and I were out for a beer, coffee, we're out for dinner, and I invite everyone to do this. Go people watch, and you will see that people are almost never still. We are rarely still for more than a few seconds. And if we are, it's weird and we think something is wrong. Stillness is not natural. Let me say that again. Stillness is not natural. When you watch National Geographic and the alligator is about to eat the wildebeest, what is the first thing the wildebeest does? He just freezes
Right.
because they're afraid. They freeze, they panic, and it looks weird. So the only time hands are actually distracting is when they do the same thing over and over. So if I did my presentation and I just use my hands in the exact same motion, very quickly, even though I sound pretty confident when I'm talking, you're probably only looking at my hands because they're doing the exact same thing. People say never put your hands in your pockets. Isn't that like just totally natural though? Never cross your arms. Go watch any late night talk show host and watch them break both those rules. But I would argue that they're better speakers and better communicators than any public speaking coach.
Could be. Yeah.
So
Could be.
what's the secret? It's the diversity. So and I'll finally get to my point here, my friend. I just can't help myself. The way you look confident in your nonverbal communication is through diversity. So the tactic is, here's what you practice. And this is all I've been doing. You have to have a diversity of hand gestures. This happens naturally when you're fine. When you're nervous, you get very self-conscious. So here's how you practice. You talk on one side of your body with both hands. You relax. You talk on one side of your body with the other side with both hands. You relax. You talk with one hand. You talk with the other hand. You go back to that process and you mix them up. Sometimes you talk on this side. Sometimes you use one hand. Sometimes you use both hands. Every now and then you relax, you chill, maybe you cross your hands, but then you go back to this. And that diversity is what makes you look normal, which is what makes you look comfortable, which is what makes you look confident.
Nice. Nice. I appreciate the little insider information right there for folks who are aspiring speakers. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So,
Follow him
okay.
on YouTube.
Step up the mic on YouTube, everybody. Listen, I
One
appreciate
more time. Say it
all
again.
of that.
Oh, Rory,
Yeah.
say it, pause, and say it again. Let's do it just for funsies. Go.
All right. Step up the mic pod on YouTube, everybody. Step up the mic pod on YouTube, everybody. There you go.
We got real dramatic that second time too. Yeah, that was good. That was really good.
You and I were talking about this a little bit beforehand, and so I wanted to make sure I got this in before I let you go today. Um, Aspiring speakers,
Sure.
people love the idea of the lifestyle. They love
Yeah.
the idea of what it really is, and everything. But very few people have been in that life and know what it's like in the trenches. Trying to become an aspiring speaker. You do,
Yeah.
and you mentioned the speaker life may not be what everybody thinks it is. I was curious if you wanted to give everybody
Yeah.
maybe a quick look behind the curtain, at what is really going on
Certainly.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As someone who caught 56 flights in 2024, I can comment to this very much so.
Wow.
Yeah. There was one week where I was in like 3 or 4 time zones in like a 6-day period. Yeah. That was a
Wow.
tough week. Yeah. Now here's the thing. Most people who sell becoming a professional speaker aren't actually selling becoming a professional speaker. They're selling you a lifestyle. If you go on Instagram, and because of my realm, I see all these people selling public speaking courses, what have you. And it's like, listen, man, I'm here. This is the eighth city I'm here on speaking. I'm just at the airport, man. Oh, my life is so awesome. But the reality is, a lot of times you are doing a lot of travel, especially as a starting out speaker, you will never travel comfortably. So it's the rare speaker that is getting a business class ticket and a really nice hotel room. You know what I mean? If you're going to a conference, most places will give you a hotel room and they'll ask you to book your own flights, but they'll be expecting like an economy flight purchase or an economy plus. Only when you get to a certain level and you put it in your rider that you require business class. Second thing, so it's not a comfortable life. Like airports and airplanes are not comfortable places. I spend like half my time in an airport. I have like I get access to all the lounges, I travel, and it still sucks. Because you spend your whole day like traveling. The other aspect of it is that, I would be very honest with people. It is a lonely life because if you travel a lot as a speaker, if you already have a social life, that's going to die. If you have a family life, it's going to put stress on it because you're not going to be home very much. The last thing I'm going to say is like, yes, it is cool to go to all these places, but understand that when you're going to these places, two things will happen. One, you'll probably be by yourself the whole time. So you'll get these you'll like, I remember I was in Sydney a few months ago and it was fantastic. If I didn't salsa dance, dude, I would have been so depressed because I would have been by myself outside of my speaking engagement. I would just been like by myself, which is, I'm a loner. I'm fine with it. But even for me, it gets a lot. After years of living this life, I, you're never anywhere long enough to establish a strong social connection. And
Hmm.
because you're by
Wow.
yourself, yeah, you can be a tourist. But here's the other aspect. If you get popular and you get busy, well, guess what? You're only there for the conference and then you're out. I mean, I went to Pittsburgh, beautiful city, by the way, underrated. I couldn't believe how green and pretty
Wow.
it's in the beautiful little place, beautiful city. I flew in on Tuesday. I did my keynote on Wednesday, and I had to be out on Thursday. Why? Because I had a keynote on Friday.
Good problems to have in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah, and I don't want to sound like I'm complaining. I chose this life and it's great, but it's a reality that no one told me that, yeah, you get to travel, but you're not really enjoying it very much. Yeah, you get a certain
Yeah.
level of attention and acclaim, but you're still going to the hotel room like if you're professional at least, you're still going to the hotel room alone every night. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
There's
Interesting.
lots of
Yeah.
benefits too. I'm so thankful just to end. So it's not all bad. Like I'm super thankful that, I get to like do what I love as a passion, which is fantastic. But it's not like this glamorous lifestyle.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
But we can't end on this downer. We have to end
No,
on
no,
something else. We can't
no,
ask me
not at
something
all.
else. We can't end on a downer.
I will. Before I forget, though, let me get your contact information out to everybody so they know how to reach you, if they want to, reach out, that type of thing, or find out more about your public speaker lab.
Yeah, absolutely. It's
Hmm.
publicspeakinglab.com. If you find me on Instagram, I like to joke that I'm a failed social media influencer. I post every day. Nobody cares. But if you like this, you can find me at Public Speaking Lab. At Public Speaking Lab.
Got it.
Public Speaking Lab on LinkedIn. Public Speaking Lab everywhere.
Nice. All right. To end on a good note, what is the best part about being a speaker, doing what you do on a regular basis?
I will tell you, there's two things that I really, really love. Number one is the fact that I'm my own boss. And there are times like I'm gonna pull the mirror back a little bit. I was in my pajamas until we talked today. And it's like 3:30 in the afternoon. Why? Because I had nothing to do. I was just at home. I was chilling. You know what I mean? It was beautiful. So that's one, the ability to make my own schedule. And on a deeper level, um, I'll tell you this anecdote. I work for one of my clients is a very large bank here. And I was doing this, we were touring across the country because with some of the senior management of the bank. So like the senior vice president of wealth, the senior vice president of this and that, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And at one point, I'm just sitting there during the break, and the senior VP of business development for the entire country is like, can I talk to you for a minute, please? I'm like, oh, damn. Right. He's like, can we just have a moment in private? And I'm like, oh, okay. And we sat down. He's like, you have had such an impact on this organization. I just had an experience that blew me away from one of the people who took your session. And I just want to say, and he's like, whatever we're charging you, just double it next year. Because it's like, I just can't believe it. You have to, what you're doing is incredible. And I just wanted you to know that. And I was like, dude, I'm going to cry in a minute. Like, like that came out unsolicited and getting things. Sometimes you get that back from people after the fact. I still think about that all the time. I know it's a little self-centered, but I'm trying to change
Nice.
the world. I'm trying to end boring. And when someone affirms that,
That's nice.
yeah,
That
Thank
is
you,
really,
man.
really nice. That outside affirmation like that, when it's unsolicited, is just really amazing, and it helps speakers, it helps folks like you, it helps podcasters, to just kind of keep going because no matter what you're doing, in this area or it's a grind, and you
Yeah.
need that little encouragement like that. So
And if anyone, I'm going to put a little pitch out, if people are enjoying this, please comment wherever you're listening to this, whether it's on Spotify or YouTube, please comment and just make part of your comment, bring Yvonne back. And Rory and I will have a conversation on how to build that business, how my experiences and how I've done it.
love that. All right, well,
How's
you can
that?
count on that
How's
if you're
that for
willing
an
to come
upsell,
back.
baby?
Hey. If you're willing to come back, offer accepted, and yeah,
Anytime.
and I'll pay you double what I paid you this time. That's right.
Fantastic.
All right.
A million times zero is
You
still
got it.
zero, baby.
You got it, brother. All right. That's absolutely wonderful. Yvonne, thank you for being on and for giving you talk and for
Been a
giving all this
pleasure.
fantastic advice, brother. I really appreciate you.
I appreciate you having me. It's been a lot of fun. You got a great energy, and I can't wait. I've started following. I can't wait to hear the next episodes.
Thank you. Folks, that's been another episode of Step Up to the Mic. And if you are an aspiring speaker, if you're a current speaker and you want to just work on it and get another talk out there, you want to come on here and just try it out, see how it works, have a conversation, put the name out there a little bit more. This is the place. This is the spot. This platform is for you. So when you're ready, let's do it. Step up to the mic.
You.